Key light placement can completely change how your video looks. In this video, I'm going to be using one light for this entire setup and strictly show you what different key light placements do and how it affects your video to move your light around, raise it up and down, and see what different effects it actually has on your video. Because once you know how to achieve different lighting looks, even if it's only with that one key light, you can dramatically change how your video looks depending on your environment, what scene you're trying to create, and what feeling you want your video to have. So let's talk about it. The one light that I'll be using for this entire video is the Rembrandt F22X. I have both layers of diffusion installed over the panel along with the lantern attachment. So this is going to give us a nice big soft source to accomplish all of these different looks. First of all, let's talk about shooting on the shadow side or the light side. This can be called far side or near side key lighting. So think about this: if I was sitting this way, the camera is to my right, I'm looking in this direction. So we're thinking about this as if we were shooting like an interview setup or a setup that's like a scene from a movie, something like that, where it's not necessarily a person that's looking straight at the camera, because a completely straight on shot, this wouldn't necessarily apply. But even with straight on shots, sometimes you generally have a direction in that you're kind of sitting. You're not always necessarily just completely boxed up to the camera, so this really does kind of apply in this scenario. So if we were to do near side lighting or have the camera on the light side of the face, that would look like this, where the light is on this side and the camera is pointing at the bright side of my face versus the dark side. Now, you can use this technique for certain scenarios, but a lot of times it looks way better to shoot on the shadow side. That's what they do in movies, and it achieves a more dramatic look if you shoot on the shadow side. So let's swap our light to the other side and you can see the difference. Okay, so now you can see that we've swapped our light from this side of the frame to this side of the frame. So if I was back in kind of my position of this is my line of sight, you can now see that the camera is actually shooting on the dark side of my face, which gives it more dimension. It kind of makes it look more defined and gives a lot more visual interest in the frame. So here's a before and after of shooting on the shadow side of the face or the light side of the face. There's different use cases for both, but the most widely used is to shoot on the shadow side of the face. Now let's move into some different lighting placements. All of these different styles can be used in different scenarios depending on what you're trying to achieve for your scene. Let's start off with some really flat lighting. Sometimes this can be considered high key, but there are definitely use case scenarios for using straight on flat lighting. So to achieve this, we're just gonna put the light directly behind the camera and almost at eye line. So this is with the light just directly behind the camera, and it's kind of eye lined with me. So it's lighting up all of this underneath my chin. It's lighting up everything about my face. My face looks pretty flat. Now, there is a technique to this. Sometimes, of course, it may make sense for the scene or whatever type of lighting that you're trying to motivate off of. For instance, if you were at a laptop, it would make sense for the light to be coming in front of you rather than from the side. So front lighting has a time and place just like side lighting does. A lot of times front lighting like this is used for beauty lighting, but to do that they actually raise the light up a little bit to create a little bit of shadow under the chin and to define the cheekbones a little bit more. So let's raise the light up and see what that looks like. So you can see now I still have a high key lighting. It's nice and flat, nice and even across my whole face, but now it's providing a little bit of shadow underneath my chin, and it's kind of defining my cheekbones a little bit more. This is what's called beauty lighting, and a lot of times they'll use this to create that nice, soft, bright lighting on, say, a model's face. So if you need a scene that's very clean looking, maybe you're shooting someone who's a little bit older, who has a lot of wrinkles, a front lighting style like this might help to kind of cover up some of those blemishes and wrinkles. Because the more shadow you tend to add to the face, the more it's gonna make those types of blemishes and things stand out. So there is a time and a place for clean looking, high key, bright environment type front lighting. But let's go back and compare it to side lighting. So let's move the light over to the side. Now you can see for this shot, I've moved the light over about 45 degrees from the camera to the left, but I also brought it back down to where it's eye level with me. Now watch what this does to the image. We're getting nice shadow on this side of my face, and we're almost achieving like that Rembrandt triangle look, but because I have it too low, it's also kind of lighting up underneath the chin and just kind of giving some unflattering light in places where you may not want it. So to really achieve a full Rembrandt look, we want to actually raise that light up. So let's do that. So we kept the light in that same position, about 30 or 45 degrees off from the camera, but we've raised it up. So now you can see a before and after of having the light lower or raising it up to fully give that shadow underneath the chin and really define the face. We're getting a nice Rembrandt triangle on this side, which is a very popular style for Hollywood. You'll find this in a ton of movies. They'll be giving that nice Rembrandt style lighting. I use Rembrandt almost all of the time. This is my traditional typical setup. I'm shooting on kind of the shadow side of the face, and I'm usually doing some sort of Rembrandt with the key light position about 45 degrees off from the camera and then elevated up so that it's shining down, not too harshly, not overhead lighting, but just enough to give that nice shadow underneath the chin. It also creates a nice little nose shadow, and that's kind of how you can gauge if you have it too high or not. Now let's move on to overhead lighting. Now, as it sounds, for this type of lighting, the light is literally overhead. So this can give more of an ambient feeling. It can spill light onto more of the area of the room and more of an even distribution. And this can be a really natural way to just get a lot of light into the room as a whole while also lighting your subject. It can also be used for several different styles. So you'll see here that I'm getting the beginnings of kind of some eyeshadow where you can't see my eyes quite as clearly. If we move the light back, you can almost get that kind of villain look, which is a technique that they sometimes use in movies to create like a more sinister character, or that feeling of like you don't really know the person because you can't really see their eyes and make that connection. So let's see what that looks like if we move the light back. So you can see this provides a really unique looking lighting setup. I look more mysterious of a person because of this lighting style. And this is all about placement. It's the same light, is set at the same percentage of brightness, but the scene can look totally different based on where you place that light. Then if I were to move this light more forward, it would go back to just kind of being a nice fill light for the space and for me. And this is what it looks like with overhead lighting that's a little bit in front. So it almost gives just a nice overall lighting on everything in the space. And it tends to look pretty natural because most lights are in the ceiling, and so this direction of light can look really, really natural for whatever scene you might be doing. You can also light from underneath if you're really trying to give that kind of spooky feeling, you know, like the flashlight in the ghost stories where you used to kind of shine, make your face look spooky. You can do lighting from underneath to get that kind of look. Another style of side lighting that we talked about earlier is doing a complete half and half where you have the light at a 90-degree angle from the person. So that gives one half of their face in light and one half of their face in shadow. This is a really dramatic look that you could use, again, depending on your setup and your scene. So the point of this whole video has been to really show you that it's not just about buying a big, huge key light. It's about knowing where to place it in the frame. Just like this example. To me, this is not super great lighting. I'm lighting up everything. I'm getting a glare on my glasses, but if I just, I got me a nice light, here we go, I'm gonna film, and I just set it up randomly, this is the result that you might get. But if you know to move it over a little bit, raise it up, we can achieve this, which is a much nicer looking shot, in my opinion. Anyway, I know this was a shorter video, but I wanted to make this because I think key light placement is so important. Before you add anything else into your scene, cool accent lights, tube lights, background lights, hair lights, it's important that you know where to put your key light to achieve the look that you're going for. If you're wanting a completely bright scene that looks like daylight in the room and everything is very bright, then you might want to do a little bit of front lighting to kind of have that nice high key lighting that's even. But if you're wanting something more moody, where it's kind of, you got your colored tube lights going on, you've got your cool lamp or your sunset lamp going in the background, then you might want to learn how to do some nice Rembrandt lighting, kind of like what we have right now. That's going to add some more shadow, it's going to add some dimension to the face, and really bring to life your vision for the video. So let me know in the comments, what's your favorite lighting style? What's your favorite lighting look to use? Hope you found some value and learned something new. If you did, check out some of the other videos on my channel.